Principal Sarah Coleman stood at the entrance of Riverside Elementary every morning at 7:30 a.m., greeting each child with a warm smile and remembering their names, their fears, their dreams. For 25 years, she'd been the steady heart of this small-town school. What the 847 students and their families didn't know was that before she'd started protecting their education, those same gentle hands had stormed buildings to save hostages for the FBI. Welcome to Whispers of Lives. Before we begin this incredible story of a beloved school principal whose gentle voice once coordinated the most dangerous hostage rescues in FBI history, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe that some heroes spend their second careers protecting the future by nurturing young minds, hit that subscribe button and share this story to help us honor those who never stop serving others. The morning sun cast long golden rectangles across the polished hallways of Riverside Elementary as Sarah Coleman unlocked the main entrance and stepped inside. At 52, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced every challenge that 25 years in education could offer, and quite a few that most educators never imagined. Her morning routine was as precise as clockwork. First, she walked the entire building, checking each classroom, noting any maintenance issues that needed attention, ensuring that every space was ready to welcome children safely. It was a habit born from years of clearing buildings for tactical operations, though now she was looking for broken pencil sharpeners instead of explosive devices. By 7:15, Sarah was positioned at the main entrance, where she would remain until the last child had entered the building. She knew every face that would come through those doors. All 847 students, from kindergartners clutching their parents' hands to sixth graders trying to look grown-up as they walked with friends. 6-year-old Emma Martinez was always among the first to arrive, her backpack nearly as big as she was, bouncing with excitement about whatever she'd planned to share during morning circle time. "Good morning, Emma," Sarah said, crouching down to the child's eye level. "How's your new kitten doing?" Emma's face lit up with pure joy. "Whiskers learned to use the litter box, Principal Coleman, and he sleeps on my bed now." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I can't wait to see the pictures you promised to bring." As Emma skipped toward her classroom, Sarah felt the familiar warmth that had drawn her to education after leaving federal service. These moments of pure happiness, these small victories in a child's life, were worth every sacrifice she'd made to be here. What Emma and her classmates didn't know was that their beloved principal's ability to remember every detail about their lives had been honed during 12 years with the FBI's hostage rescue team, where forgetting a single piece of intelligence could mean the difference between a successful rescue and a tragedy that made national headlines. Agent Sarah Coleman had been one of only 18 women ever selected for the FBI's elite HRT unit. She'd participated in over 200 operations, from domestic hostage situations to international terrorist incidents. She coordinated rescue operations in buildings, aircraft, and remote locations where the margin for error was measured in seconds. Her specialty had been crisis negotiation and tactical coordination, the ability to maintain calm communication with both hostage-takers and rescue teams, while orchestrating complex operations that required split-second timing and absolute precision. She talked desperate people down from violence, coordinated with SWAT teams in situations where civilians' lives hung in the balance, and made decisions under pressure that most people couldn't imagine. But after 12 years of living with that level of intensity, Sarah had reached a crossroads. She was still at the top of her game professionally, still trusted with the most sensitive operations, still respected by colleagues who knew that her presence on a case significantly improved the chances of everyone going home safely. The decision to leave hadn't been about burnout or trauma, though she'd certainly seen enough of both. It had been about realizing that her skills, the ability to remain calm under pressure, to read people instantly, to coordinate complex situations involving multiple personalities and conflicting needs, could serve a different kind of mission. Education had always interested her. During her FBI career, many of her most successful interventions had involved young people who'd made dangerous choices, and she'd often wondered what might have been different if someone had reached them earlier, before crisis became the only language they understood. When she'd applied for the principal position at Riverside Elementary 25 years ago, the school board had been impressed by her leadership experience and crisis management background, though they'd had no idea of the true scope of her qualifications. Sarah had simply listed her federal service as crisis intervention specialist and let her interview performance speak for itself. The transition hadn't been as difficult as she'd expected. Many of the skills that made her effective in hostage situations translated directly to school administration, reading body language to detect problems before they escalated, maintaining calm authority in chaotic situations, coordinating multiple personalities and competing priorities, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. The main difference was that instead of dealing with armed criminals and international terrorists, she was now managing playground disputes and parent-teacher conferences. Instead of coordinating tactical teams, she was scheduling field trips and budget meetings. But the core mission remained the same: keep everyone safe, solve problems before they became crises, and ensure that every person under her protection had the best possible chance to succeed. Over the years, Sarah had built Riverside Elementary into something special. Test scores had improved dramatically, but more importantly, the school had become a place where children felt genuinely safe and supported. Teachers wanted to work there, parents fought to get their children enrolled, and the community took pride in their neighborhood school. Sarah's staff often marveled at her ability to handle any crisis with calm efficiency. When the boiler had exploded during a particularly harsh winter, leaving the school without heat, Sarah had coordinated temporary solutions and kept classes running without missing a day. When a suspected gas leak had required emergency evacuation, she'd moved nearly 900 people, students, staff, and visiting parents, out of the building in under 4 minutes with perfect organization and zero panic. What they didn't realize was that Sarah had once evacuated a hijacked airliner in under 3 minutes while coordinating with FBI tactical teams and maintaining radio contact with hostage negotiators. Compared to that, even a school emergency felt manageable. As the morning continued, Sarah moved through her building with the systematic awareness that had once kept her alive in hostile situations. She noticed that third-grader Marcus Williams seemed more withdrawn than usual, possible problems at home that might need counseling intervention. She observed that new teacher Jennifer Hayes looked overwhelmed during hallway duty, would need additional support and mentoring. She mentally cataloged that the south stairwell's handrail was slightly loose, maintenance priority before someone got hurt. By 8:30, all students were in their classrooms, and Sarah was settling into the administrative work that filled most of her days. Budget reviews, curriculum planning, staff evaluations, parent communications, the behind-the-scenes work that kept a school running smoothly. She was reviewing the morning's attendance reports with her secretary when her crisis management training suddenly activated. Mrs. Patterson, the school secretary who'd worked at Riverside for 37 years, was updating the daily attendance in their computer system when she paused and looked up with concern. "Principal Coleman, we have a visitor at the front door who seems agitated. He's asking about enrollment procedures, but something feels off about his questions." Sarah's training kicked in immediately, though her expression remained perfectly calm. "What kind of questions?" "He wants to know about our security procedures, how many exits we have, what our lockdown protocols are. He says it's for his nephew, but—" Mrs. Patterson's voice trailed off uncertainly. Sarah was already moving toward the office window that provided a view of the main entrance. Through the safety glass, she could see a man in his 30s, wearing a heavy coat despite the warm September weather, pacing back and forth in front of the building. His body language set off every alarm bell her FBI training had installed. Agitated movement patterns, excessive clothing for weather conditions, surveillance-style questions about security, unknown individual attempting to gather intelligence about a soft target location. Mrs. Patterson, please step into the inner office and close the door, Sarah said quietly. I need to make a phone call. Sarah's first call was to the county sheriff's office, using the direct emergency number that connected her immediately to dispatch. This is Principal Coleman at Riverside Elementary. I need to report a possible security concern. Unknown individual conducting surveillance-style questioning about our building security. Requesting immediate but discreet response. Her second call was to the district security coordinator, alerting the central office that Riverside might need to implement elevated security protocols. Her third call was to her head custodian, using the internal radio system to request that all exterior doors be quietly secured and that maintenance staff position themselves near key areas of the building. All of this was accomplished in under 2 minutes, with the kind of calm efficiency that her staff had come to expect from their principal, though they had no idea they were witnessing professional-level crisis coordination. Through her window, Sarah continued to observe the suspicious individual. He was now testing the handles of multiple doors, trying to determine which entrances were unlocked. Classic target assessment behavior. Sarah made a decision based on 12 years of experience dealing with potentially dangerous individuals. Instead of waiting for law enforcement to arrive, she would engage the subject directly, not to confront him, but to gather intelligence and assess the true level of threat. She stepped outside, maintaining the warm, professional demeanor that had served her well in countless negotiations. Good morning, she said pleasantly. I'm Principal Coleman. I understand you had some questions about our school. The man turned toward her, and Sarah instantly cataloged details that confirmed her suspicions. Nervous energy barely contained, eyes that scanned constantly for threats or opportunities, the bulge of a concealed weapon poorly hidden beneath his jacket. Yeah, I got a nephew might be starting here, he said, but his voice carried the artificial quality of someone delivering a rehearsed story. Want to make sure it's, safe. Of course, Sarah replied smoothly. Child safety is our top priority. What specific concerns did you have? As she engaged him in conversation, Sarah was simultaneously assessing threat levels, calculating response options, and positioning herself between the potential danger and her building full of children. It was exactly the kind of multi-layered tactical thinking that had made her invaluable to the FBI. The man's questions became increasingly specific and concerning. How many teachers were in the building? Where were the main gathering areas? What were the response times for local law enforcement? Sarah answered with carefully neutral information while mentally preparing for multiple scenarios. If this individual was planning an attack on her school, she was now the primary obstacle between him and 847 children who depended on her protection. You seem very knowledgeable about security, the man said, his tone shifting slightly. Most school people don't think about these things. I've always believed in being prepared, Sarah replied calmly. You can never be too careful when children are involved. That's when she saw the sheriff's deputy approaching from the parking lot, moving with the casual appearance of a routine patrol while actually responding to her call. Sarah had positioned herself so that she could see both the potential threat and the arriving backup without making it obvious to either. The deputy's arrival changed the dynamic immediately. The suspicious individual's body language shifted from predatory assessment to flight preparation. Sarah recognized the signs. Someone who had been planning something illegal and was now calculating escape routes. Well, I should probably get going, the man said, suddenly eager to leave. Thanks for the information. Of course, Sarah said pleasantly. I hope your nephew will consider joining our Riverside family. As the man walked quickly toward the parking lot, Sarah moved to intercept the deputy, briefing him on the situation with the concise, factual reporting style she'd perfected during her federal career. Potentially hostile reconnaissance of school security. Subject displayed knowledge of tactics, carried concealed weapon, asked specific questions about response capabilities and building layout. Recommend continued surveillance. The deputy, who had expected to handle a routine suspicious person call, found himself dealing with a level of threat assessment that was far beyond typical school administration concerns. "Ma'am, how did you identify all of that?" he asked. Sarah smiled her warm, professional smile. "Previous experience in security work. I think it's important to stay vigilant when children are involved." Over the next several hours, as law enforcement investigated the incident and implemented increased patrols around the school, Sarah continued her normal administrative duties as if nothing unusual had happened. She attended a curriculum committee meeting, reviewed budget proposals, and conducted 2 parent conferences. But internally, she was running scenarios. If the morning's incident had been reconnaissance for a planned attack, what would be the most likely approach? How could she optimize the school's defensive position? What additional security measures could be implemented without creating a fortress-like atmosphere that would frighten the children? By afternoon, her analysis had crystallized into a comprehensive security upgrade plan that she would present to the district office. Enhanced communication systems, improved lockdown procedures, better coordination with local law enforcement, and staff training that would prepare her teachers for situations they hopefully would never face. That evening, as Sarah walked through her empty building one final time before locking up, she reflected on the strange path her career had taken. Once, she had protected strangers whose names appeared in classified files. Now she protected children whose names appeared on birthday party invitations and honor roll certificates. Both missions required the same core skills: constant vigilance, quick decision-making, absolute dedication to keeping others safe, and the ability to remain calm when others couldn't. The main difference was that her current mission felt more important. Presidents and diplomats were temporary. They served for a few years and then were replaced. But children were permanent. They were the future itself, and protecting them meant protecting everything that mattered most about the world. 3 weeks later, Sarah's security assessment proved prophetic. The suspicious individual from that September morning was arrested as part of a domestic terrorism investigation. He had been conducting surveillance on multiple schools, planning an attack that would have targeted children as a way to inflict maximum psychological damage on the community. The FBI agents who briefed Sarah on the arrest were impressed by her threat recognition and response. One of them, a younger agent who clearly didn't know her background, commented on how unusual it was to find such professional-level security awareness in an elementary school principal. Sarah's former partner from her HRT days, now a supervisory special agent, just smiled. "Principal Coleman has always been exceptional at protecting people," he said simply. In the months that followed, Sarah quietly implemented her security upgrades. New communication systems that allowed instant contact with law enforcement, enhanced lockdown procedures that could secure the entire building in under 60 seconds, staff training that prepared teachers to recognize and respond to threats without creating an atmosphere of fear. Most importantly, she maintained a warm, nurturing environment that made Riverside Elementary special. Children continued to feel safe and loved. Teachers continued to focus on education rather than security concerns. Parents continued to trust that their most precious possessions were in good hands. The only visible change was a small addition to Sarah's office, a framed photograph of her FBI hostage rescue team from 15 years earlier. 18 men and women in tactical gear, faces serious, representing the elite of federal law enforcement. When curious staff members asked about the picture, Sarah would simply explain that it was from her previous career in crisis management. She never elaborated, and they never pressed for details. But sometimes, when she was alone in her office planning lessons or reviewing student progress reports, Sarah would look at that photograph and remember the weight of decisions made in seconds, the sound of tactical radio communications, the feeling of knowing that lives depended on getting everything exactly right. Then she would look out her window at the playground where children laughed and played without fear, and she would know that she'd made the right choice. Agent Sarah Coleman had protected strangers for 12 years. Principal Sarah Coleman would protect the future for as long as they would let her. Some heroes carry badges and storm buildings to save hostages. Others carry grade books and storm budget meetings to save education funding. Sarah Coleman had been both, and she understood that the second mission was ultimately more important than the first. The children of Riverside Elementary had no idea that their beloved principal was one of the most highly trained crisis response professionals in the country. They just knew that Principal Coleman always made them feel safe, always listened to their problems, and somehow always knew exactly what to do when things went wrong. And in Sarah's opinion, that was exactly as it should be. The best security was invisible security. The most effective protection was protection that allowed people to live without fear. 25 years after leaving the FBI, Sarah Coleman was still in the business of keeping people safe. She just found a better way to do it, by teaching children to trust the world, while quietly ensuring that the world remained worthy of their trust.